regular voice. At the moment, I got sick. I apologize for the pausing and slow talking because this is straining my throat. This video lays out the fundamental concepts of my ideology for forming an effective and realistic emergency kit for you and your family. As with everything in life, it's most important to get your foundations strongly established because those determine the quality of everything else. This subject is extremely meaningful to my life, and it's the reason why I got into the YouTube community in the first place. Through this, it has given me the opportunities to work with some of the top people in the industry of knife making and tactical gear. And it's also inspired me to start making my own brand of tactical tools. The information I'm presenting here is serious and could potentially hurt someone or even break the law if misused or misunderstood. It can also benefit someone and be abused. There are imposters here on the internet that are utilizing my name and pretending to be me. And there are also a lot of reviews on YouTube that suggests an almost complete collapse of government, which I think is very noble. And as a Christian and as an American citizen and reviewer born here in the United States, I have stood to gain from this country's opportunities and its social structure. So I wanted to continue to prosper, and I am not in any way, shape, or form condoning or suggesting we should have the mindset that everything's going to fall apart, and we should be prepared for that. Because the reality is, a disaster or dilemma will happen in phases, and this is the first major point I think we can realize is logical and true. Even if it was something as a community, society, or household we are unprepared and untrained for, there will still be various strata and contingency plans in place that won't immediately be debilitated, along with intervention and systematic attempts by their government, DMAT groups, the Red Cross, for example, all to maintain order. The second fundamental is we have to understand that in these situations there will be people involved, and we ourselves are people. So a lot of things will be happening psychosocially. The next thing is that the first 72 hours following a major event is the most dangerous because of a lack of coordination among relief organizations and people. Interruptions in rescue efforts due to hasty decisions made under stress. And then groups of people not sure of their roles during the disaster, during the operations, the efforts. And I keep referring to Maslow's hierarchy, and we continue to promote it here because we can adapt it for survival situations and focus on the first 3 levels. I'll be providing links and articles documenting actual events, facts, showing the consistency of Maslow's theory. For example, in Katrina, people were chasing away new people who were seeking refuge because they wanted the aid and the resources for themselves. People were also stealing the first aid and trying to use it for profit, to resell it, or to kind of barter with people. And even to the point of police, issuing lethal force if they saw anybody stealing. Starting with stage 1 fundamentals, I encourage you to get a pen and paper and take the time to pause this video as I list each fundamental, which is in essence a question, and perhaps sit with a loved one and let's together assess our alimentation. The first thing would be to learn to assess the situation. Document where you go, where you are, and within each environment, what issues are you concerned about? Earthquakes, flooding, rioting, theft, your home, your car, your workplace. First, let's assess the situations. The second fundamental is threat assessment. Place in order your top primary concerns in this situation. Following Maslow's hierarchy, if we're looking at your physiological safety, then moving on to your physical safety, and then topping off with group dynamics, make a list of what you are most concerned about in these situations. The number 3 would be evaluating the skills or the skill set of each member in your group or yourself as an individual. And I want to branch off now to note 2 other concepts regarding psychology and physiology. Every emotional response has 3 components. There's hormonal, behavioral, and autonomic. We can't change autonomic, but in terms of hormonal, we can look at adrenaline stress, which is something that's explained both in the tactical and medical community, which is that in a disaster or when your heart rate's going, epinephrine, the hormone, or aka adrenaline, causes perhaps tunnel vision. Sometimes people say your hearing shuts off, and even a loss of fine motor skills or coordination. And you have to realize that other people around you also will be experiencing this phenomenon. Then the other aspect is behavioral. When I used to teach martial arts, there's 2 types of people you can kind of classify on a spectrum. There's people that do things instinctually, and then there's people that do things based off of intellect. And I'm going to draw a little diagram inserted here. And again, you and others around you are going to be bouncing between this. As the stress increases, you're going to see perhaps people with very logical choices start making less logical choices. And I myself am included in this category that when I get angry or something, I shift towards instinct, no longer intellect. And the 4th final fundamental point would be to identify your role and know what your job is, what you're good at in your group or as an individual, what you're capable of doing based upon your skill set. Now, these fundamentals apply in actual real time and can help with disaster management, keyword management. And a handy acronym I've made is STSR. So assess the situation. What stage of Maslow's hierarchy are you dealing with at this moment? If you transition, for example, from your home to a bus station, is the bus station safe? If we're past that, are we now dealing with interpersonal communication? That psychosocial thing I was talking about. Are people breaking down from intellectual back to instinct and will possibly shift back towards physical threat? That's where number 2, the second letter T, prioritize your threats. For example, if there's an earthquake, but you have all hunkered down and situated yourself, the next threat will be what? Other people seeking shelter? Will it be perhaps like theft among your group, such as we see in like Katrina? Assess that situation, prioritize your threats, focus on the top ones, starting from top to bottom. Then look at your skills, assess your own skills. Who should be doing this? Should I be doing this? Maximize it. Who's better at doing this? What should we attempt? What can we attempt? What should I attempt? If your skill set means you include someone who can't run or someone who's small as a child, then that means perhaps one other individual, perhaps your wife, has to be the one who carries their child. And then now perhaps you have become now the defender of the group. And lastly, knowing your role. Giving people purpose raises hope, gives them something to do, something to keep their mind focused, and gives people a sense of purpose. So know your role. If you are the person who's going to defend the family, if you're the person who's going to carry stuff, if you're the one who's going to provide communication skills, Identify what you're good at and make sure you focus on your strengths. It's much like they say in the Olympics, it doesn't make sense if someone is naturally a great sprinter to constantly train for endurance. Why not just train for sprinting and win? So now that you know the fundamental dilemmas, threats, yourself and your group, you want to start selecting items that will increase your chances of surviving, adapting, and overcoming. So here we now look at the old saying, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, which is sometimes accredited to Murphy, and it's called Murphy's Law, but the actual origins are hard to identify. Some people say that's an old mountain climbing saying. The main thing is that based upon that thinking, there are a lot of books, materials, and also reviewers that suggest then simplicity would equal less chance of complex issues. But this is now 2014. We have viral social media, and this is why there are YouTube reviews and internet publications, so that we can know if and what will go wrong. Newer tech can be reliable, and if you are concerned about something breaking, you can always use redundancy and back it up. And there's two more concepts here in stage 2. One is the type of kit. And basically, I would say that it differs between being mobile or stationary. And those two don't really complement themselves. For example, if you're forced to run and your role is to defend your family, the weight, perhaps your backpack is heavy, it's causing you to shift around too much, those things will hinder your ability to protect yourself and your family. For example, maybe you have hunkered down and you're still forced to evacuate. Firemen, police, they come and say this area is no longer safe. You have to move, you have to leave your home. And that means trains, public transportation, etc., which will place restrictions, of course, on how much you can carry and bring with you. Plus, if someone sees you perhaps use something they need, they may steal it from you. If you're running around with a rolling suitcase, that will slow you down, burn calories, cause nausea. And what if that is the difference between getting out, on board, or first in line to be assisted? Lastly, you have to look at how your kit fits into each phase. As things progress and go back and forth up and down the levels of Maslow's hierarchy, and how long a kit can last. I can't show these clips directly because I don't own the rights to these. But this is a clip from the movie Quarantine. You can see here how the firefighter is arguing with the police officer. And it's not exactly the best portrayal of a police officer. But the point of this is to show that in this movie, people are arguing with people. There's a guy who's drunk, who's uncooperative. And, maybe one of those individuals is a child molester. And this is a golden opportunity. People in gangs, they're going to stick together. And these are people you have to seek refuge with. You can't have infinite water, ammo, food, first aid, etc. In certain situations, some things are become irrelevant. To survive may be incumbent upon having mobility and defense, or mobility and first aid. And when I keep saying mobility, we're talking time, your speed. And everything else will hinder this. The situation may just be, you just need to get out, get to the hospital, and the day's over. So I'm going to put the list up here in the corner of this video. And as I continue, you guys can look at it. So to recap, mobile or stationary kit. If it's mobile, it should be on you. Something compact, discreet. The more mobile, the better. You don't want to lose precious time. Like a lot of these, videos suggest, you can't sit there and decide and pick and choose what you want to keep to get on board. Climbing, running, fighting, swimming, hiding, etc. What if shelter for you is across water, on a plane? Perhaps it's in a courthouse and they're still enforcing no weapons allowed and they're scanning and searching everybody. The next thing would be the phases and longevity. Remember, situations are progressive, and in each Maslow's hierarchy's phases or levels apply. So in each new situation, if things are not stabilized, they could be at a different level. And again, those threats will become your primary concerns again, your primary threats. So your survival kit should be able to transition in between all the different levels of Maslow's hierarchy, depending on what threat is current. And it should always establish the base level, which is your physiological, and move up. So the acronym for building a kit based on STSR, situation, threats, skill set, role, is AOV. A stands for to assist or aid. So for example, aid mobility, or aid your stationary kit, aid your base, your home. Assist that. If it's to assist your mobility physiologically, then it needs to keep you moving. That in a tactical situation, perhaps it's going to aid one of your children to be able to better lead her little sister, if that's her role. And then let's say you get somewhere and it's safe, you're sheltered, there's no rain on your head, you're not going to freeze, but now safety's an issue. If you get trapped, if there's a fire, will you be able to escape? Anything that aids your continued mobility. The next would be overlap. You can kind of say versatility. If a tool or item you pick can apply as each phase shifts, as the levels fluctuate, it'll help you more. For example, weaponized lighting, okay? Or bandages that can not only be for first aid, the first level, physiological, but also help you perform better, run without pain. So that where regardless of where the situation is, in terms of how under control it is, you can maximize and still use what you packed. And the third now is value. Value always comes down to cost, money, space, durability, functions, etc. And usually, highly specialized tools usually have less versatility because they're not giving up any sacrifices for other features. They're primarily focused upon one goal, and so you're going to have to look at your skill set and decide what's your strategy. For example, with safety, I don't like messing around. The rest to me is irrelevant if people are not safe, if I'm not protected. And I'm a good fighter. I'll be a little bit violent. The truth here is that is my skill set, and so I like to highlight that and build my kit based upon that. But there are other ways within my kit that can aid that. For example, back to lighting. Lighting aids mobility, helps me see where I'm going. But I also want it to allow me to remain mobile. So, for example, I can still have use of my hands and not worry about dropping my flashlight. Or even this one where you can clip it onto your shirt, or typically it's on this strap here, and it stays on across my chest. I don't have to hold it at all, and I can use both my hands. But then that situation has passed, and now I have to defend myself. I want then this same lighting tool to be useful as perhaps a striking weapon, or even something that can blind. Then as groups form, I want it to be concealable, compact, and secure from theft. These highly specialized, focused, gear, knives, flashlights, these are the things that you're not going to be able to get. They're not common. Talking about acquisition and paying attention to that during a crisis is a whole nother video, and I'll save that for another day. In terms of my personal mobile kit setup and my stationary kit, which is under this table, they differ greatly, and the contents of each, when I get a chance to, as I catch up on work, I will work on uploading those videos. Big thing for me is always quality over quantity. Look forward to more 7-point reviews, tactical discussions, videos on self-defense techniques, and anything else I can do to contribute.